So essentially, the toad medicine with the 5-MeO-DMT isn't the only substance out there which affects our consciousness. And I'm not saying that people have to take these substances. What I'm recognizing from my own journey is that nature is psychedelic. Nature is sacred.
Yes.
And we are so disconnected that we think of ourselves as separate from nature, that we think we are taking ayahuasca. And we are, but we're not separate from the planet which creates ayahuasca.
Yeah.
And so people say like left-hand path, right-hand path, these things are not good. It's like we have a planetary emergency that we are largely responsible for in our egoic, function.
Yeah.
And time is pretty short, right?
Yeah.
And so you can get to these spaces of non-dual consciousness and of lowering the ego by meditation, by other practices, by breath work, by tantra, by meditation. And these are wonderful. All paths lead to central source. And the emergency contains within it the emergence. And that's what I believe is happening on the planet at the moment.
Okay, so all of these paths, different meditation, different psychoactive chemicals, these all kind of drive us to what you called the source. And then from there, within this limited time that we have of trying to, this emergence that we can come with to solve the emergencies that are occurring on the planet.
Well, it's like Einstein says, the consciousness which causes the problems is not going to be the consciousness which solves them. And so if we understand what we've said in this conversation about history being, the canvas of our trauma, essentially, and that if we're trying to save the world from a place of egoic consciousness, we're going to be trying to solve a million little problems. But all of those problems are actually a product of our consciousness. If we can come back to our center, individually and collectively, and come back to feeling, and come back to the heart, and come back to compassion, and come back home to where we know we are that source consciousness within, then that emanation coming out of us will solve everything. Because, this is my other shorthand, I say, we're not saving the world is saving itself through us.
Through us.
By re-engaging the relationship with us, because that's the only problem, is that we're disconnected. So
tapping into this
whether you
feeling
do
of
meditation
heart.
or tantra or, I don't know, any, whatever method gets you in touch with yourself, that is what is needed at this time, because what is inside us, majority of people have forgotten. So in the 5-MeO experience, which again, the toad, for instance, acts as a catalyst. It is smoked, so it bypasses the gut. It is absorbed through the blood-brain barrier incredibly quickly, within seconds, because the brain knows what to do with it, because we produce our own 5-MeO-DMT, right? Essentially, you were saying before, what does it do scientifically? Like the default mode network, but a little bit different. It lowers the frontal lobes of the brain. It increases coherence to the point of hypercoherence of all the network activity of the brain. So everything comes online, and the ego drops out of the picture, right? And we don't want to kill the ego. We need the ego, but the ego needs to know it's not in control. It's not always needed.
Yeah.
When the mind lets go, we lower the defenses. And in indigenous understanding, they say we have an energetic body, an emotional body, and a physical body. And as we go through life, humans store their stresses and traumas. It stores in the energetic body, it comes into the emotional body, heartaches and woes and all that stuff. And at those nexus points with the physical body, that's where sicknesses often develop. And so when we let the ego and the mind down, all of that stuff can come up and come out for healing with a good practitioner to help hold space for you in a ceremony. And our natural innate capability, like a newborn baby, I call it, 5-MeO is like, I call it God's factory reset. It's like a complete refresh, potentially, that then aligns you with your inner self and that you receive the signal. I call it a galactivation, right? So the frontal lobes go down, the mind goes down. The best maps I've seen for this are the Vedic maps of samadhi, their sense of liberation or oneness, that sense of non-dual unity consciousness. In the Vedic maps, they say that what we think of as the mind or the ego is like wind on water, like ripples, busy, always thinking. Even when you're falling asleep, still thinking. We're never free of it, right?
Yeah.
And so when that lowers, we can go deeper into the ocean of the mind itself, what the Vedic maps call sattva, the depth of the ocean of mind itself, and we can reach Atman, or our true nature. So the mind goes down, the heart and the stomach instinct, those networks, because they're networks as well, they open up, They connect to everything in the unity field and they feel the signal. And that feeling is like the heart of a star. It's like, you know, the poet Rumi said, the drop rejoins the ocean.
Yep.
When our individual nature of holding on and thinking we're this lowers and just surrenders and lets go,
Yep.
it opens up this capacity within ourselves for the drop to remember the ocean. Mm-hmm. And that is within us. It's like Buddha nature within us. This is what all the Eastern mystic texts have been saying. And it is now firmly within our grasp to access very rapidly with the power of 5-MeO and with the wisdom and respect and sacredness to do it right. So I'm not suggesting people rush out there and look for 5-MeO.
Totally.
You have 5-MeO in your very nature. Mm-hmm. You could very well just meditate and find that. Ideally, an entheogenic experience like 5-MeO DMT to activate the person's full bioelectrical field, married with a meditation practice and a grounding sort of environment to maintain that vibration. Because people find once they've had the 5-MeO experience, it doesn't necessarily go away. This isn't a tab of acid you take and it wears off 8 hours later. This is your deeper being revealed. And then when the mind comes back online, and it does, the mind's there, but anytime you learn to lower the mind and the defenses, that vibration is still active within you, right? And it's like as more and more people come online and have their activations through whatever method, through breath work or tantra or 5-MeO, it's like more and more people are connecting, and I call it a samadhi mesh network. The signal gets stronger the more people will have this experience, however they get there. It's almost as if in the season of consciousness we're in, we're receiving 5-bar signal, like things are getting really interesting on Earth. So the emergency we're seeing is a direct play of form of our egoic construct over time coming to a crescendo, and it's not looking good, right? Don't attach to the outside form. Come back to the feeling. Come back to the heart. Come back to the compassion. Come back to your true nature. It's perfect. Everything is perfectly orchestrated because everything is incredibly interconnected. We are within the matrix of Pachamama of Gaia. She is in the matrix of the solar system, within the galaxy, within the universe, all of space-time within the container of source consciousness, which creates the universal being somehow through its mysterious nature and is somehow outside and within. I never used to be, but I do consider myself a mystic because there's no other language I can have to describe this. I'm not even necessarily drawing on the maps of old. I've come across them, but if and when you have this experience, it reveals itself to you in ways that are beyond words and beyond language, in feeling, in a knowing which just downloads and is